Hey guys, how's it going? Thuong Cruise here with another bike commuting vlog here in Japan. It's the weekend and I'm with my wife, Thuong-chan. And we're all bundled up for the nice cold weather that we have lately. Starting to get pretty cold here in Japan. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about bike commuting with road bikes. So for those of you guys who are new to the channel, my name's Cruz. I live and work here in Japan, and me and my wife are both daily bike commuters. So Thuong-chan actually rides a road bike to work every single day. That's her main commuting bike. And for myself, I actually have a variety of different bikes that I use to commute. So I use a mountain bike, a cyclocross bike, a fixie bike, and my road bike. Gotta be careful when we cross the streets here. And so I kind of mix it up and use a variety of different bikes for my commute, depending on the weather and depending on how I feel. And I realize not everyone is fortunate enough to have a large variety of different bikes. You may only have one bike that you can use to commute. And if that's your case, I'm sure a lot of you guys probably just have your road bike and you're wondering, can I use my road bike for commuting? So in today's video, I want to talk about some of the advantages, disadvantages, the good points and bad points of bike commuting with a road bike. So let's go ahead and get started. Actually, for the last few weeks, I was in a mountain bike kind of mood and I've been commuting mainly on my mountain bike. But I recently switched back to my road bike because I had to participate in a road event, so I wanted to get used to my road bike for that. And since then, I felt really good being on the road bike. It felt really light after riding my mountain bike for a long time. So the first benefit we should go over is the lightness. I mean, you can't beat the weight of a road bike compared to a mountain bike, compared to a hybrid bike, compared to a cyclocross bike. The road bike is generally going to beat out any of those other different types of bikes, and there's a lot of advantages to having a lighter bike. One is you can accelerate easier and it doesn't wear you out as much. So one thing that I've noticed since I switched back to my road bike is that I don't feel quite as tired as I was when I was biking to work every day on my mountain bike. And I mean, it's not a problem to ride the mountain bike to work every day, but I definitely felt a lot more refreshed, like going up hills. We're going up a hill right now and this is just, and this is not taking nearly as much out of me as it would if I was on my mountain bike. So weight, big advantage. And depending on your commute, you may have a lot of hills, you may have a lot of flats, so you definitely notice that advantage more if there's more elevation gain on your commute. But even on the flats, I felt a lot faster compared to my mountain bike. Like I could maintain a higher speed more easily. So I mean, just road bikes are meant to go fast on the road. And that really depends on also what kind of terrain that you're riding on your commute. So is your commute nice, smooth pavement like this? This section isn't super smooth. There are some rough sections. We're kind of riding by some different like factories and construction areas. So the roads here are a little bit rougher. And there's no particular order in this video. We're just going to go over kind of what's coming across my mind as I remember. The other big advantage of just using a road bike is, especially if you have one lying around, is it doesn't cost any extra money to get started bike commuting. And I realize there's a lot of different people that watch this channel. There might be people like me who are originally competitive cyclists and decide to also bike commute. But then there's also maybe some people who are starting out cycling for the first time. They're looking for a new bike to use for specifically commuting. And so I realize everyone's needs are a little bit different, but if you're like me and you came from a more sports focused background and you want to participate in road races, criteriums, and you also want to commute but you can't afford multiple bikes, road bike is a great solution because with the one bike you can do pretty much everything. You can use the same bike to race, you can use the same bike to commute if you wanted to. One disadvantage though with that I found is that, especially if you're an everyday commuter, if you commute in the winter, if you commute in the rain, the weather's going to have a huge impact on your bike and how much maintenance and repairs you need. So that's another thing you got to be careful about crossing a main road here. You go. So here's an example. The road suddenly ends, and this of course depends on where you're riding, but you may be riding on some gravel roads, you may be riding on some rough roads. I find it's actually not that big of a problem riding on a road bike. Like roads like this, as long as it's not too long, it's perfectly fine. The biggest thing you want to make sure is you have some nice puncture-proof tires. I made a separate video on this channel about my recommended commuting tires, what I've been using for years, and I never get any flats. Gator Skins are my tire of choice. Super great tires. It's also nice, the newer road bikes have a bigger clearance, so you can put 28 tires on there. I generally ride 25s, but I'm recently thinking to switch up to 28s. If it is possible for you to afford multiple bikes or have space for multiple bikes, I do recommend getting a separate bike as your commuter bike and a separate bike as your racer bike if you want to do both racing and commuting. It's not a good idea to use the same bike for both unless you're very good at maintaining your bike and keeping it clean, which I honestly don't have the energy to do after working every day. Like, you wake up early, you ride an hour to work, and then you work all day, ride an hour home, and if you have to ride the rain and then clean your bike at the end of that, that's just way too much work for me. So I personally like to have multiple bikes. And I like to have personally multiple bikes, especially if you're riding in rough conditions like a rain. I like to have a rain bike. That's what I like to use my single speed for. The single speed is great because you don't have to really worry about anything maintenance related, and you can just beat it into the ground. But you can also find some nice cheap used road bikes. For example, my wife's road bike is actually used. We bought it for about $300 and we've used it 2 years. We haven't had to change any parts on it other than the tires. And yeah, it holds up a solid. So most places should have a good used bike market. You can buy it on eBay. You can find it on a local Facebook group, which is what we did. Road bike is such a broad category, and there's disc road now. We're both on rim road. Honestly though, as we start to consider our options for our next road bike purchase, we are considering going disc. There's advantages and disadvantages of going to disc and sticking with rim, but that's a whole other video in itself. But I will say there's a huge advantage to disc, especially if you're riding in the rain, and it's just overall a bit safer in my opinion. You ready? But overall, a road bike is a solid option as a bike commuter, and honestly, you can make any bike that you have work. Mountain bike, cross bike, single speed, road bike. They all have their advantages and disadvantages. Maybe I'll make an extra video going over the advantages and disadvantages of all those different types of bikes in the future. If you haven't yet already, you can check out my other video about the advantages and disadvantages of mountain bike commuting. We're actually arriving here at an event that we're visiting today. So this is Aichi Bokujo. It's a farm. They actually hold a cyclocross race here. And today there's actually a test ride, a demo ride day. So we're coming out to test ride some different gravel bikes. So gravel bikes are also a great option for commuting. And we're gonna film some extra videos from the event here. So if you're interested, you can check that out and see some of the other different bikes that we test out. And there's also some other cool attractions here, some farm animals, some ice cream, homemade ice cream, and a lot of other cool things. But we're gonna finish today's video here. So be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next video as we go check out the Aichi Bokujo Gravel Demo Day event. And as always, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time here on Two Wheel Cruise. Jenny.